recording. And so some of this probably went by before, but I came to the realization that every model I have ever developed has been biased based upon my level of ignorance. Give me any piece of software that lets me create two labels and draw an arrow between them, and I can develop a relationship model. Though none of them will help me model what I don't know, I don't know. And there, like 18 months ago, there was a very nice piece of software being developed, which was astounding. And the developers decided there wasn't a market for it, so they blew it up, um, which made me very, very sad because I created about 300 models with it in a few months. It was phenomenal. Then the only thing since then has been comodel.io, which you can talk to and have it develop a relationship model, though it's pretty thin and it's I think it's somewhere between an alpha and a beta. It's got a long ways to go, and the rate of development is such that I'll go check on them in 6 months and see if they've made any progress. It's just, I mean, there's if you're going to develop a relationship model, there's certain things that are appropriate, which is a description of every element, every connection, every loop. Um, and it has none of those. And it doesn't even save your queries. So there's no gerbil trail to follow to understand how you got to where you are.
Okay.
So a number of people have developed this capability called vibe coding, which is coding applications when you have no idea how to write code.
Mhm.
And um, Gemini finally got to a point where they developed a model that was good enough to integrate with Canvas so that you could describe what you wanted for a model and it would build it. And once it built it, you could actually talk to it.
Mhm.
So you could say, well, what else does this influence? And it would give you this whole list of things, and you could say, well, add this and this to the model, or take this out of the model, or whatever. But it currently it every time you give it a command, it rewrites all the code, which takes a while. Uh, the idea now is to try to figure out how to get it to realize when it should rewrite code and when it should just change the data that's part of it. So,
Yep.
um, hi, David.
Good
David
morning,
is
Jay.
somewhat here. Hi, there. David, meet Bruce.
Hi, David.
Bruce.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's coming up here. Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. No, yes.
So I'm currently migrating or trying to migrate from from Gemini Canvas to Firebase Studio, which is
Okay.
a more sophisticated environment
Uh-huh.
with more overhead to see if I can recreate what I created in Canvas, um, to get the AI logic inside of the application as opposed to continuing to talk to Gemini and have Gemini modify the
Hmm.
application when I tell it to. So
Uh-huh.
it's because the thing is, at certain times, you want to ask it questions about the model, but you don't want it to write any code. And then
Right.
sometimes you want it to actually change something about the way the code works. And when you get it to a point where the code is fine, I think you want to save a template that
Hmm.
you can start with in the future. And I've
Yep.
done that with Gemini Canvas. So I've loaded one of the old models in and said, strip all of the data out of here and now populate it with the elements and relationships for such and such.
Uh-huh.
And it does it. So
Oh, it's
it's, I last Saturday, I, I came downstairs and I told my wife that I just made the hair on my arm stand on end because it was, it wow.
Yeah, right.
I was blown away.
To teach it how to think through the process the way you wanted, you had set it up, and now you can just apply data to it. Interesting.
But there's certain things about the way that it's
Hmm.
doing the display that I'm still not happy with. So there'll be commands to tell it to upgrade the code, and then there'll be commands to tell it to put new data in the code. And it's, as I told Bruce, it's continuing to progress in a manner that's encouraging. I'm
yes.
not frustrated at the moment. Well, I am frustrated because it takes too long, but um,
So, just have a question, Gene. What was the previous tool, and did the developers give any thought to open sourcing it?
well, they weren't going to open source it because it actually costs money to run it because of its connection to Chat. It was built on ChatGPT 4.0
Right.
back when that was the current state of
Current
the LLM. That any version of a model doesn't last long. Um, so I haven't talked to them in 6 or 8 months,
Oh, okay. Mhm. So,
and I
what wondered,
was
letting people pay for it themselves would be a opportunity for keeping it alive if it was a reasonably powerful tool that nobody was going to take advantage of.
well. I said I took advantage of it because I
Right.
created a
Well,
few hundred models with it. I was
Mhm.
I was addicted to it. I mean, it was
yeah.
just what I bet. Well, it wasn't. It wasn't so that you could talk to it in a normal fashion, so that you could say, um, "What other things should this influence?" And you could say, "Find me a connection between this and this," and it would find you one or more variables between those two elements and
Interesting.
establish the
Oh,
relationships. And it had comments on each one of the nodes and the connections, and it identified loops, it identified archetypes, and you could tell it to write you a description of the model of a loop or an archetype, and it would write you paragraph about that particular aspect of the model. It was fabulous.
That sounds
So
powerful.
we had them demo it to the Kumu people several times, but the Kumu people are too busy rewriting version 3. Wait a minute, hold on. Maybe that's better. So, they only have a certain amount of capacity, and until they get version 3 finished, they don't want to get distracted with AI. But supposedly, hopefully, today, tomorrow, or Thursday, I get a chance to zoom into their offsite meeting and show them the stuff I've been developing. So we'll
Huh.
see. I had to write the I had to actually write the Python code and send it to them. And after beating them up for 18 months, they did auto loop identification. So, um, which is absolutely fabulous. I mean, it's tough to evaluate a model when you don't know what all the loops are. I mean, I had this model that I presented for probably years. And once they implemented auto loop identification, I found out that the model had 9 or 10 loops in it I didn't know about.
Yeah,
So,
that is surely one of the big advantages of making use of the LLM is just it holds more information than you can.
mhm. My understanding is about this big, and the LLMs is, you know,
Right.
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely.
but the thing that's currently messing with my mind is I've watched a couple of videos that talk about them restarting some LLMs with zero data and having them develop themselves without
Interesting.
inputs. And I can't fathom how that's working, but they say, hi Tripty,
Hi.
they say that it's working well. Um, I don't know how they can set it up and start it with no data and have it fabricate everything. So go to
Was
YouTube
it?
and look for a couple of videos on zero data LLMs or something like that.
Okay. So is it supposed to just start learning from some other source or?
No, it learns it from itself. They said that it poses problems to itself and it
Uh-huh.
solves them.
Interesting.
And let me, where is this? Uh, how have you been, Tripty?
Busy. Well, thanks. How's everyone?
Hello.
Good.
Where is it?
Yeah. Be interesting to see how that works itself out. At the moment, I think the LLMs are still self-hallucinatory, and you'll see some really odd personalities coming out of them.
They're called absolute zero models.
Right.
Okay. Well,
There. Yeah, there's a bunch of videos. I don't know why they decided to call it absolute zero, but
It sorts well.
yeah. Yes. Top of the list.
so if you'd like, I'll um, show you what I started with and where it is.
Yeah.
Sure. You seem to have the lead on this. I'm just starting to try to play with some things.
My recommendation is play with it some more.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is it? Share. Okay, so go to Canvas and here's the here's the prompt I started with. I said I wanted to create a web app to assist me in understanding causal relationships. And um, once we sort out the app, I'll remove all of the data so that I can, go ahead and use it as a template and load it back in. And then the causal loop diagram itself is fixed, though I want to be able to pan and zoom the model and move the pieces and whatever. So then after several several go arounds, it
Oh,
drew this.
oh my word.
So, and then somebody said, well, how come all the arrows point to economic growth and it doesn't influence? Oh, okay. This arrow wasn't in there initially. So I went back and I said, well, what does economic growth influence? And it gave me a list of things. So if I go back and look at this one, I took the template from the previous one
Mhm.
and populated it and said, I said, oh, I need to get this. This is the hospital calling. I'll be right back.
Sure. So, how are you two involved with the causal analysis that Gene has been doing in the storytelling?
I've sort of followed some of the things that Jane's been doing for years.
Yeah.
Um, and right now I've been more recently trying to take some of the causal loop diagrams and generating net logo code to explode them dynamically.
Okay. Uh,
I'm back.
hey, Gene. Thank you.
So what I did was I loaded the template from version 0 and said, use the template I've loaded with the relationships and populate it with the relationships for MMT. Don't update the app, simply add data and display the causal loop diagram. And it did, but then this version includes, and it talked about what it did. And I said, what else does government spending influence? And it said this and this. And I says, doesn't inflation rate also influence cost of goods? And it said, yes. And can you add that to that map, please? And it added it. And um, so can you add the map? Okay, I've added that. The relationship between employment level and aggregate demand should be one connection in each direction, not a double-headed arrow. Can you fix this? And it did that. So I mean, you have to
It's
look
amazing.
at. In other words, part of the problem I was having before when I was using Gemini just to create CSV tables for elements and connections, all the data is there, but you can't understand it. I had to put it in a text file and
Mhm.
drop it onto Kumu to actually draw the map so I could look at the map to figure out what the next question was that I wanted to ask,
Mhm.
Yep.
which got old really quick because you by the time you go through those steps, I've sort of lost interest in going to the next question. Right? And here, at least it keeps me engaged um, to go ahead and interact in a context that goes back and forth. Then when I send out the stuff for when I post the video and send it out, I will send out the links to the templates, and you can use them freely as you wish. And it, it's not difficult. You just go to Gemini Canvas
Hmm.
and tell it that you go there and you upload the template file, and then you tell it, to use the template. And what you don't, there's problems here in terms of the arrows aren't well connected, but it does allow me to change the arrows. And I mean, there's comments on the connections, there's comments on the elements. So, I mean, it's hard to sleep these days. Questions? Where should we go from here?
Oh, Gene, have you thought about using the canvas and such to generate a World 3 model?
Too many pieces. I don't even want to go there. So what might what might be interesting would be to take an existing World 3 model and feed it to Gemini and ask it what the primary driving loops are in the model. Because I know I was doing that with a number of things. I was going into another script.
Uh-huh.
Where does it share this? Share this. Uh, when the user describes a situation they're trying to deal with, who are the relevant stakeholders? List the relevant variables and relationships to create a closed loop diagram. What are the feedback loops most responsible for the current situation? In narrative form, list the leverage points for dealing with the situation, and then create an emotional story of the unfolding future as the leverage points are adopted. And how would that story vary
Oh,
among each of the various stakeholders? And
whoa.
this pumps out some really interesting stuff because it doesn't give me a cause loop diagram. It uses all the pieces for a cause loop diagram to
Uh-huh.
identify
Oh,
the leverage points and write me a story. And 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 yeah, so here's a link to this.
mhm.
So this right here is the prompt,
Uh-huh.
and there are 4 stories that I've developed with it so far. So this is the story that ended up, but here is the what came out of it directly is the stakeholders, the leverage points. How would the story change for the individual stakeholders? I wasn't interested in actually seeing the table of variables and
Uh-huh.
relationships. I wanted to sort of save people from that and simply provide them with a story about the implications of the relationships. And then the other one, stories. Here's a prompt, which is write me an emotional tripping over the truth story about something. And here is a bunch of them that I did, I don't
Uh-huh.
know, not too long ago, but it's nothing grows forever. And it's just an emotional story about the fact that nothing grows forever. But it's it's written, the stories are written in the form of the Heath Brothers Moments book, where the tripping over the truth is when you take a clear insight, compressed in time, delivered in a manner that allows the audience to discover it, as opposed to trying to tell them something.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where'd it go? Oh, there it is. So it wasn't my intent to monopolize this meeting.
No, sort of just dropped in to see what you were actually doing. I've been seeing your newsletters, and I'm still trying to figure out the best way of describing the problem I'm seeing in the systems engineering community, which is how we met, uh, and wondering if there's a path to have this help me.
Well, you could just use the leverage points prompt
Right. Mm-hmm.
and say, tell it how you perceive the problem in the systems engineering community, and
Mm-hmm.
ask it what it perceives as the leverage points to deal with it. I
Uh-huh.
mean, I keep saying that the bad thing about the LLMs is there's no user's guide. The good thing is there's no user's guide.
Right.
It's up to our imagination to figure out what can you get it to do, and the only way you do that is to play with it.
Jump into it, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I find myself at times I get sucked into this rabbit hole, and somebody makes an off the cuff comment, and I realize I'm in a rabbit hole, and I come back out, and because it was, here I go again. It was thinking that I was going to get the LLM to replace causal loop diagrams, which was ludicrous, because what it produces, well, if it gives you the tables for the elements and the connections, you can read them, but you can't fathom the relationships of those pieces not listed in the table. I now believe that it's really good at figuring out what the pieces are, but you have to look at the pieces connected together to figure out the next question that you want to ask about the context. So it's not one or the other, it's an and I've known that forever, that almost always the best solutions come from and. Um,
It is only a tool,
Yeah.
which means you have to actually use it, right? Rather than expect it to run on its own. I think that's
so is it the tool or am I the tool?
yes. Question is what's the system?
I think we're grasshopper.
Uh, it's using me to figure out in a certain dimension what's possible.
So I found an interesting application the other day. I was talking with a friend over lunch, and he's involved in age tech, age tech. And no, that's interesting. I live in a condominium with any number of elderly residents. So just with some very simple prompts, I generated AI generated an entire list of helpful hints, financial, and health and wellness,
Mm,
technology, and after it spit out about 4 or 5 pages, I summarized it a little better and posted it. It's got some interesting feedback from my local residents on usefulness.
mm.
So, and I haven't played with it beyond that, but I could certainly do so. But just some useful applications of just asking just simple questions and getting useful information back, I think is that I by itself is amazing.
I ask it to act as a Socratic tutor and help me learn organic chemistry, which I
Yeah.
have absolutely no clue about whatsoever. And I told it, and I know nothing about organic chemistry. And it was, from my perspective, it was fabulous in terms of prompting me to think about things in different ways. So, I now understand that organic chemistry is all about um, carbon-based molecular structures, one way or another, because we're a carbon-based life form,
Uh-huh.
and the way that the valence bonds connect with hydrogen and carbon and oxygen and all this other stuff. And I have no idea what I'm going to do with it, but it was a very interesting hour and a half. Um, and because I told it I had no clue to start with, it started there and just sort of walked me into it.
Interesting.
So if
So it's
someone
almost like a
wants,
tutor or
yeah, well, I said that I
yeah,
wanted it to act as a Socratic
yeah,
tutor
yeah.
so that it would not tell me the answers to anything, though along the way I could talk to it, ask it for clarification, things that it was trying to get me to understand, and I was asking about some of them from a different perspective because it started talking about covalent bonding, and I asked it what other kind of bonding is there, and it told me that there was ionic and covalent and something and some molecular bonding, and And it's probably at the point where I could ask it to teach me about origami, and it would go ahead and actually draw pictures. It's
Yeah. Well, I recently came across an interesting article about combining large language models with Wolfram's language and Mathematica,
Mhm.
and with Gemini and Perplexity and other types of tools. It does really good at large language. I mean, at natural language processing. Can combine that with the curated data that Wolfram has put together. That could be a very, very powerful tool, even more powerful than either one by itself. And that's something I've just started to begin to explore.
So since I have heard of Wolfram, I understand that once upon a time he developed this application that blew lots of people away, well, the ones that actually understood it. Though I don't have any idea about what data set has he curated that.
I don't have a definite answer, but uh, he's taken and pushed mathematics in new directions and
Oh,
developed these mathematical models of like finance and biology and so on. And he's got this entire database of you want to know what the lo- what the makeup of a protein looks like, and it can
oh,
generate that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm just beginning to explore it a little bit more, and it's just one of those things that just sort of pops up and says, "Huh, that's." I get distracted. There's too many things going on, and so it's easy to become distracted.
I would go along with that quite definitely. I just put in a couple of queries that I'm going to have to go back and read later about Wolfram. Stop already. I ask it, have you absorbed his curated data? Wow, that should be interesting reading. I'm back.
Okay,
Sorry.
it's okay.
You have to grab them as they go by, otherwise you lose them.
All true. So there's a documentary on I think it's on Amazon Prime, um, called The Thinking Game, and
Okay.
about an hour or so of documentary about these a chess prodigy, uh, kind of growing up and deciding chess is not his profession going forward, but he's going to adopt into AI. And he put together the team for the UK's Deep Mind that beat uh, in the game of Go. And then I guess last year, as the documentary concludes, he and his team won the Nobel Prize
Oh
for
yeah.
protein folding. So apparently, he's still the CEO of DeepMind in the UK. So if looking for something to have a glass of wine and relax and not think too hard, it'd be a great little video to watch.
Yeah, and there's a lot of videos on YouTube, interviews with him, and I cannot remember how to
Yep,
pronounce his name.
yep, me too.
Uh, and he's still the CEO of DeepMind, which was purchased by Google for several $billions.
Right.
And seven. Ooh.
That's the name. How do you pronounce it, Tripley?
That's this.
I have no idea. Demis? Hassabis? It
Oh,
sounds like Ethiopia.
yeah,
Okay.
Demis Hassabis.
Okay.
Now I know why I couldn't remember it.
There was also that Mustafa Suleiman who wrote the Coming Wave
Oh yeah, that was the
for DeepMind.
I can't recall the person's name who wrote it, but it was an incredible book.
Mustafa
Just
Suleiman.
yeah, something like that.
He's British.
Okay. Yeah, the book was certainly mind expanding.
Tell me about it. Just a little.
But what I can recall basically was the future of AI. Kind of looking at maybe a little bit of the present and extrapolating into the future. Um, and I think I mean a lot of people have done that. And I mean what we're seeing right here in our little conversations about AI, it's truly mind expanding. And so but he does a far better job of of explaining it than I do. Um, but I'll have to reread the book. I scanned it really quickly. Tripoli, what did you think?
Well, I listened to it on Audible. It was fantastic. I just definitely mind expanding, as you said, but I couldn't. I'd have to actually get the physical book and then read it and underline parts and pick just one aspect of what he's talking about because it's very all over the place. I think
Yeah,
I would require a little bit more of a focused approach because I'm a beginner at this stuff. Um, but I think the way he puts data together and makes it like kind of like a logic map, kind of like what Gene does. It's an entire book doing that kind of creates its own brain um and logic model.
yeah.
He was a co-founder of DeepMind.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And did he join the Microsoft? Was it Microsoft or OpenAI? I'm not sure where he is now.
Uh, it says
One
his
thing.
his central thesis is that humanity is on the cusp of a monumental technological surge, primarily driven by artificial intelligence and synthetic biology. And I don't know what synthetic biology is, but
Craig Ventnor has been one of the leading developers of synthetic biology.
who's that?
Craig Ventnor.
Craig, Craig Ventnor. He runs a lab in San Diego. I think it's Venter, Ventnor, something like that.
He sussed out the first human DNA, whatever description
Right. Right. His team modeled DNA.
modeling. Yeah. Human genome. Yep.
Yeah, the human genome. Right. Exactly.
Gemini's Gemini's writing as though it's me again because it says, from my systems thinking perspective, Craig Bentner is not just a scientist, but a potent agent of change within several interconnected systems.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. When these sessions end, I typically have more reading than I know what to do with because we're just
Yeah.
collecting bits and pieces that
Well, this is where I
all
think
seem relevant.
AI can be helpful. Is we don't have time to read these 300, 400-page books, but a useful summary, maybe we could get through in a couple of hours, and then have summaries that are compared and contrasted, so we could do some of the analysis for us. Because we don't have time to read individual books that are lengthy. I mean, like Stephen Wolfram's book on A New Kind of Science is about 1,000 pages. I mean, it's a doorstop, and it includes so much math in it, and you can't possibly get through it hardly in a lifetime. And I think
Unless
that's
that's
kind of
what
where
you do, you're always trying to figure out how to do it.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, in the words of uh, this Gene Bellinger fellow, I feel overwhelmed at times.
I'm trying to think of the last time I wasn't overwhelmed.
So, so yeah, that's my new quote when I talk to some of my colleagues. As my mentor Gene would say, I feel overwhelmed at times.
Quite often for me.
Oh yes, oh yes.
Well, it could be worse. You could be bored.
True.
Oh, yeah,
True.
true,
Uh-huh.
true. This is anything but boring.
Yeah, I don't think I've been bored since I was a kid and didn't realize enough to know that there was no time for being bored.
Well, I discovered a net logo model of World 3 that I've just started to play with some more. And you're right, there are lots and lots of variables and interactions, but so maybe because I haven't quite figured it out, I feel okay about going forward with it and
Is
seeing
it
what I can
online
do with it.
somewhere?
I'm trying to figure out where I found it, and I'm not sure if it came with the net logo. When you download net logo, you download basically hundreds of models in code, and it might have been there. I am not exactly sure where I found it, so it was probably there as a basic model. So I've downloaded NetLogo 6.4, and it's a free download. And so I've been playing around with any number of different models. And then I said, well, I'll take a look at World 3. And I've just started to play with it a little bit. But there's so many different programming languages. I've kind of decided to put more time in on NetLogo than Python or some other language, just because you have to kind of focus and trying to focus on something. But certainly after I could make some sense of it, I'll be happy to share it.
Uh, provide a short help file with it so that it doesn't take us as long as it's going to take you to get familiar with it.
Okay. And
Where's it? Find.
You're looking for it? It's at ccl.northwestern.edu. Wow. You guys are tough. You guys are tough. I got half a dozen, a little bit more than half a dozen things I have to go do now.
So what are you doing, Bruce, with AI?
I am retired at this point. My background is software and systems engineering,
Uh-huh.
and I am working with a personal knowledge management uh, tool and team to try to figure out how to organize the years and years of crap that I have,
Uh-huh.
both
Interesting.
physical and mental.
Yeah.
And the windmill I'm currently chasing is the disconnect between systems engineering and the rest of the systems community,
Oh,
which is how I met Gene.
uh-huh. Uh-huh. Great. And Tripti, what is your background?
Uh, well, I actually have nothing to do with engineering or computer science. I'm in business development and I work for United Health Group right now. And they're a federal space, so I work with like the VA and the Defense
Okay.
Health Agency. But I came across Jean's posts on LinkedIn and I wanted to learn more. And we have our own LLM and we're doing crazy stuff. And I don't understand a lot of it. So I wanted to take some time outside of the day to just understand more. Um, and I feel like I should have a little bit more to offer, but I don't. So I come
Well,
here.
it's kind well, I think we're all learning, so don't feel bad. It's
Like,
but there is so much to learn, and
well,
it's
I come
changing.
from a
So,
family of engineers.
that
And my parents
Sorry,
are, pardon?
I
yeah,
said I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Sorry, yeah. Uh, yeah, my dad is a PhD in electrical engineering and
Yeah.
came to this country to get his PhD and then my mom is originally actually a chemist, but she worked with my dad at AT&T for about 40 years. They both
Oh,
did. She was a computer programmer and dad was a quality manager, director. And they've always been in computers and computer science. And my brother went to Carnegie Mellon to do computer science. I figure I might as well try, but I'm not very good at it.
well, none of us are very good at it until we become better at it.
Ah, yeah.
Well,
So I tell I tell people I'm still learning. I just started earlier. Try not to forget too much along the way.
yeah.
Exactly.
Of course, which is why I keep all this stuff stored in the brain, and then I know it's in there someplace, and often I can't find it. I went look for something on economics a while ago, and found
Uh-huh.
out that I actually have four different thoughts with the title economics with things attached to it. And there's no reason for that. I only needed one economics thought with stuff attached to it. And now I got to figure out how to go merge them together because I tell people that my brain is not curated well. It looks a lot like a garbage dump. Stuff
A lot of
collects.
people have been talking about the brain in the PKM community. I haven't really played with it, but I'm working with a tool called Obsidian,
Mhm.
which is an open source, locally stored data set that you
Uh-huh.
create.
Hmm.
It provides the ability to cross-link files and tag files, and then use a pretty expansive database set to be able to search across those things. And one of the guys involved has come up with something called a map of content, which allows you with the linking to create and again, I don't think there's anything magical about the concept. I was using a tool somewhat like this in 1992 before the company blew up. We did a bad release and disappeared within 3 months. And it's taking me till 2020 to find another tool that was really along the same lines as that, which is this tool Obsidian. But allows you to start to draw together that underlying information just by linking the pieces together, which is pretty quick using Markdown, and helps organize those kinds of things. You find four pieces of data, you draw them up into a map of content. They're all in one place, and you can then start to consolidate and draw the pieces together. Probably would work in the brain also. It's just the switch in mindset to generating these active maps of content. So as a thought of how to do that, don't worry about having the 4 different points. Bring them together so you can make use of them.
So there are numerous pieces of software, note-taking apps, and you go watch the videos. There's which one's the best. Sooner or later, you can find a video that puts whichever one you're interested at the top of the list. So it's
right. Well, that's why I'm suggesting the concept rather than the tool.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know the brain well enough to understand whether or not you can do that kind of functionality. But because a lot of people within the community are using the brain versus Obsidian, I expect that there's some way of doing that within the brain that would help you. You found the 4 of them, just toss them into a map, and now you have a high-level index item that says, economics, and you can easily get to the rest of the pieces. Again, it's almost just library stuff, but it's really very doable with the tool sets.
So I wonder if you could actually export Obsidian or the brain or the rest of them.
Well, Obsidian is just raw Markdown files.
I understand, but if you export it to flat files so that you could use the LLM, one of them, to interrogate it, to interrogate your collection.
They've got some built-ins of AI, so you can interrogate your database in Obsidian. So Obsidian is not open source, but the interface is open source. So there's a ton of activity going on in the background by end users. Core functionality is the core functionality is not open source, but pretty much all of the additional tools are, and there's some substantial tools. Again, and I'm sorry, that just happens to be the tool I know. I'm not suggesting that there aren't other tools out there that will do it. It's what you're doing that's sort of important. And as you say, depending on how you think, the tool that you use is going to make a big difference.
Which is why I continue to say that people should use whatever tool they're comfortable with that gets the job done for them that they're trying to do. Right? And more often than not, turns out to be the first one they use.
That would have been nice, because then I would be using a tool for 40 years instead of, having a tool every 4 or 5 years trying to figure out how it works.
Well, I've switched several times, and so I'm done switching.
How does that Obsidian compare with like Notebook LLM? Which Gene, by the way, I've used since you recommended it.
Oh.
Like a lot.
Really? Okay. All right. I got to jump into LLMs. I've been doing software for 45 years. So I've
Sorry,
been,
Notebook LM. It's the Google version of
yeah,
Obsidian.
I know what it is. I have a colleague of mine is generating a podcast that he tosses out every week based on papers he's written over time.
Yeah.
He basically has the team, tear apart his paper and discuss it and post it. So I know what they are. I just haven't had the energy to do that too.
Okay, so I played around with Obsidian. I've watched a bunch of videos on it, though I can't sort out an answer to your question that I would be comfortable with. I'm much more familiar with Notebook LM than Obsidian. And it's a different paradigm for what you're curating and how you and the reason for curating it. I mean, Notebook LM is specifically to curate a set of content that you want to use an LLM to interrogate for one way or another. And Obsidian, Rome Research, the brain, it's a place to keep your notes. Lots of, I mean, thousands of notes. The even Gemini Plus is limited to 300 sources. So I mean, it's just, and you wouldn't want to interrogate 300 sources because you wouldn't find 300. I don't know, maybe, but 300 sources that are all about the same thing. I don't know. But I think you're muted, Bruce. You're not muted, but I think your microphone went away. Can I still hear you, David?
Yes. I
Okay.
can hear you, Jane.
So I got to run off to another meeting in a minute.
Okay.
So sorry your voice went out, Bruce. So I'll be back on Thursday. And what's today? Today's
Tuesday.
13th and 7th.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be back next Tuesday.
Okay. I can't make Thursday, but I'll see you next Tuesday.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Take care, all. Bye.
More things to look at.
Yes. Bye.